Iamaki was able to respond to Gerber's great start to the season at COTA, but the first 3 races have all been sprint events. Today's longer format might prove a little trickier, not just because of the extra time, but because it will take place on the tight and twisty Laguna Seca. Drivers in both classes will need their heads on a swivel as the action is expected to be fast and frantic. In 60 minutes time, we'll see who gets bragging rights at this classic sports car track as we get ready to watch round 4 of the iRacing Kamel GT series. And you'll see it all live here on the Global SimRacing channel and the iRacing Esports Network. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Nick Schmeg. Behind the scenes is our director, the Dr. Amjad Yaman, and he's using cameras provided by Dougie Beard. Nick, this circuit seems to be a divisive track when it comes to driver opinions. I always seem to hear that people either love it or hate it.
Indeed, Joe, there are differing opinions about this track, but one thing is for certain. Sometimes here in the Kamel GT series, we go to tracks that these vintage race cars never went to in the real world when they raced in IMSA a few decades ago. But other times, we go to a racetrack that just kind of feels like home for these cars, and today is one of those times. Today we race at WeatherTech Raceway, Laguna Seca. The name Laguna Seca comes from the Spanish for dry lagoon, which the venue here was constructed around in 1957, giving it that unique shape. There's a 180-foot elevation change here, and many of these 11 turns feel like a segment of a roller coaster ride through the desert, most iconically the harrowing corkscrew, which is so steep it looks more like a skydiving experience than a racetrack. Many major series have come and gone here, like MotoGP and IndyCar even returning this year, but sports cars have always ruled the Central California circuit. The track here in Monterey County spans about 2.25 miles, or about 3.6 kilometers. And to get a better look at what the drivers are up against today, let's send you down to the track for the GSRC lap guide.
All right, we've got Clayton McLeod in the GSRC Nissan, so let's do a lap around Laguna Seca. Up and over the crest towards the Andretti hairpin. This is probably going to be the best place for a pass on this track. But watch out for the lack of grip offline and the downhill entry to this double apexer. It'll be easy to outbrake yourself. From there, you'll drift it across the track and line up for the braking for turn 3. The radius tightens on the exit, so be careful about how early you try to get on the power. Then, you only need to light down on the brakes for turn 4. A lot of drivers catch the dirt on the exit and find themselves spinning into the tires to the right. Up next comes turn 5, which sometimes offers a chance to pass, but the compression from the rise in elevation and the banking makes this a pretty rapid corner. And then there's the terrifying turn 6, which has ended more races than I can count over the years. Thread the needle as best you can while carrying speed, and then plant your foot as you fly up the Rahal Straight. This leads into the incredibly blind braking for the corkscrew. It's part practice, part muscle memory, part guts. Easy with the right pedal on your way down because the turbo lag will be nasty coming out of there. After that, you'll swing it through rainy curve with its late apex and pull it back across the track to set up for 10. Chuck it in hard, down to the bottom of the banking, and then bring the car to the right for the final hairpin. This is honestly the next best place to overtake other than Andretti, but yet again, it's a slow corner, so accelerate with caution. Hopefully you've kept it all together and have now finished a lap around Laguna Seca.
From inside the cockpit, you really get a feel for how steep that drop is through the carousel. And hopefully it's not a steep drop for anybody down the points after today's race, because we could see some problems after these 3 rounds. Fabian Gerber actually moves back up to first. Phil Lake is, Fabian Gerber has been in first. It's Ardo Iamaki who moves up into third place, with his win. Phil Lake sitting there in second place has had a phenomenal season. And then John Keefe finds himself dropping 1, but still, this is higher than we've seen John Keefe in quite a while in the point standings. Martin Craytree rounds out our top 5 of the GTPs. Looking at the GTP Lights, which is effectively an amateur championship, not a whole lot has changed, just Johnny Bell and Mike Kopak swapping around. If anything, it's looking like Hideki Koivisto is going to be difficult to beat if he continues this sort of progress. We'll see if today he's able to keep that up. What about in the Audis, the 2 championships we have there, Nick?
Well, first of all, I mean, the Nissans have been very competitive after 25% of the season this year, but the Audis, after 3 rounds, 7 different drivers have found themselves on the podium. The only one that's been there more than once is Rob Olenek. He's at the top. He's on a 2-race win streak coming into Laguna Seca, and he's got a 23-point lead over Ben Lafter, who had a fantastic week. Last week at Coda, he moves himself up 2 spots. He's jumping Milan Arnozzi, who falls down to 3rd. Nicholas Mucano stays in 4th. And Dennis Neidhart, another one of those drivers, did not get going last week. He falls 2 spots, but still hangs on in the top 5. We do also have the GTU category, which, like you said, Joe, it's effectively an amateur category for the Audis. Caden Bean and Reed Miller tied for the top of that one. So even in the amateur category, the competition very fierce here. Michael Haynes and Sergey Serbin both moving up, but look at the separation. 1 and 2 points back from 1st to 4th. James Walker fell back to 5th. He's still 10 points back, though. Very exciting stuff happening over in the Audis.
Certainly is. And you heard us mention that this is a longer race, so why don't we run down the details real quick. 60 minutes long instead of the usual 40. Now, that is incorrect that you see on there. They will have a stop for fuel in this race today. We expect both classes, although there's some debate over whether or not the Audis can make it. We have seen them try that before at some tracks that aren't as thirsty, but I don't know. We'll see about that today. Scoring gets you 25 points for a win in each of the classes. Now, as always, this race is brought to you by the iRacing Esports Network. If you would like to see more of IES in your YouTube feed, well, you'll want to subscribe. All you got to do that is click the subscribe button. It's a big red one on their YouTube page, and you'll get not only the Kamel GT series, but all of the official World Championship series here on iRacing. Looking at the times that we're getting put in, Yoni Hagner there in the GTOs is our pole sitter provisionally. Fabian Gerber up in the GTP class is our pole sitter up there. Interestingly, I did see John Keefe made a big mistake on his first lap, so this is going to set him backwards if he can't get the second one to count, which he's just completing right now. The Hoosier crosses the line. And it is a 1:14.2. Excuse me. Oh, I guess it was his warm-up lap that he screwed up. So the number 16 car will get 2 laps in.
And you got to be so careful here because it's so easy to pick up an off track here, and that would disallow your qualifying time. So easy to stick just a wheel out into that dried up grass or the gravel here.
Milan Arnozzi sitting in 3rd. And he's slowing down for some reason at the end of his second lap. Definitely wasn't faster, so that 22.2 will stand as his fastest, and he actually gets bumped to 4th. Either Olenek or Trengray that disposed of him, not sure which. Lafter currently sitting in 6th. Kevin Binkley in 8th down there in the GTOs. Almost all of the GTPs are already done. In fact, I think all of them have put in the lap except for John Keefe, just finishing his second one. We see Binkley up and over the rise through turn 1. This is Tanner McCullough getting his first time lap in. And apparently that one did not count for Tanner. Must have had an off himself. Now, with the pit stops playing a part in this race, Nick, one thing I always feel like drivers maybe want to pay attention to is this right here, Hideki Koivisto. You saw him coming into pit lane and also coming out of pit lane. I mean, what a unique entry and exit this circuit has.
Yeah, it's I mean, the track is narrow enough, and then you get into the pit entry, and especially that pit exit. It's nearly impossible to exit the pit road here without kicking up a little bit of gravel down into turns 1 on the inside of the Andretti hairpin there. It's so tight. It's so tough to get through there. You saw a little oopsie there from Tanner McCullough trying to get everything he can out of qualifying here, and he sends it into the tire barrier.
Well, the bad news for Tanner is that was, since his first lap didn't count, that was his last chance, so he will not have a lap time. He'll start from the back. Kevin Binkley also getting a little bit of practice in on his pit entry. Just about a minute 40 left. I'm seeing if we have anybody still looking to set that second lap time, and I think the only one is John White, who currently sits in 10th in the GTOs. Does have enough time to complete this one.
There's a couple drivers talking about how hot the track is right now. It's about 101 degrees right now, so very slippery out there. Throwing them off after a cooler practice session, it sounds like.
Well, hopefully it doesn't get hotter. We had a Lotus 49 race earlier this morning. Believe it or not, it went up to 122 degrees.
Wow.
On the tracks. Yes, we were all gobsmacked. I couldn't believe that it had got that hot out there. So as John White seems to be on not the best of laps, struggle to try and get it into gear down through Rainy Curve. Is this going to be faster than his 24.2? Second to last on the timing sheets of the cars that have put a time in. He comes across the line, and this one is going to be a 25.2. So a second slower, unfortunately, for the number 17 car. That wraps up our qualifying. So your starting grid for today of something of a sort of small field is going to be Fabian Gerber up at the top with Justin Albrecht returning. Glad to see him back in the mix. He tends to be fast. He'll be on the outside of the front row. Philip Lake will start P3 with Ardo Iamaki starting in 4th. Fabian Jungbluth will be P5 as the green drops with Vance Bow starting 6th. John Keefe managed to get himself into 7th, with Johnny Bell starting behind him, P8. Don Peak in the dizzying heights of P9, and Hideki Koivisto behind him in 10th. Two cars did not get a time in the GTPs. That's Ryan Lang and Javier Romero.
Yoni Hagner, your winner in the season opener at Road America. He is going to have to pull over in the Audis. Rob Olnick going to be alongside of him, though. And like I said earlier, he's on a 2-race win streak. Phillip Island and Coda looking to make that 3 in a row today. Rob O, very fast up there, starting 2nd. Ove Traingrade, Milan Arnosi, Nicholas Mukano, some more very fast drivers behind them to round out the top 5. 6th place goes to Ben Laughter. 7th is going to go to Reed Miller. Gregorio Buscemi going to be alongside of him. Kevin Binkley, John White, and Michael Haynes, the last drivers to get a qualifying time in. Tanner McCullough, he is going to have quite a bit of work to do, starting back there in 22nd overall. Same with Dennis Neidhart, another one that didn't get a time in. And Dave Peterson down a couple further spots, going to round out the Audi field.
So we talked about the traffic. Well, I think it's a bit merciful maybe that they have so few cars out there today. We're looking at 12 GTPs. And from there, it'll be 13 GTOs if they all line up anyways. Hopefully nobody will be out of this race before the green even drops as they wait behind the Porsche pace car. If I may annoy some of the European viewers, this is an American series of Kamel GT. I know that we heard some debate last week of whether it's a safety car or the pace car. I say if it's an American series, we call it the pace car over here. Silence. I seem to have offended some in here already as we get ready for the Porsche to lead them around on the pace lap up and over. Now, we talked about some of the difficulties in working our way around you. You mentioned the corkscrew. One of the ones that tends to get overlooked, I guess because it just doesn't have a name, and I feel like it deserves one. Turn 6. My goodness, that no matter what car races this circuit in, I feel like turn 6 is scary no matter what you tackle it in.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's uphill and to the left, but at the same time it kind of dips down in the middle, right in the apex of the turn. And there's that big curb on the inside there. It's hard to you want to send it as flat out as possible through there, but you also have to lift off the gas. Sometimes you even have to touch the brake through there depending on what car you have, and it's so easy to get the car unsettled and off into the gravel coming out of that turn. So many of those turns actually here at this track.
This being one of them, down through turn 4, another fast right-hand kink. And then they're going to start climbing uphill once again here into turn 5. So very, very curious to see what will happen with the fuel strategy. The Nissans, we are very certain, will need a pit stop. They will not be able to make the 60 minutes without coming in for some fuel, but we're wondering about those Audis. Last time we saw them managed to make a no-stopper in the 60-minute races, Nick, was at Detroit, which is an admittedly slow course. I don't know. Do you think Laguna Seca is slow enough that it'll permit that?
Yeah, it's pretty slow in some portions, but a lot of reasons it's slower is because there's so much hill to climb here. So you are burning off a lot of fuel. Not too many amazing places to save fuel on this track. I'm with you. I don't know if that's a very viable strategy going into today. I think you might want to bank on having to pit.
We'll find out soon enough. Here comes that Porsche pace car up to turn 10, heavily banked right-hander. They're going to hand over control to our pole sitter, Fabian Gerber. And we go racing for 60 minutes. Pace car is in. Coming around that final hairpin, waiting patiently, looking to avoid wheel spin. Ooh, Gerber checks him up big time. That's going to give him a nice little jump over second place, Justin Albrecht. The dirty torque driver tries to cover off the inside. Philip Lake already looking on him. Holds the middle of the road to keep his teammate behind him. This is going to allow Ardo Iamaki to have a look, but he slots back into P4. Otherwise, looks clean in the GTPs. Let's go to the Audis.
Joni Hagner and Rob Olenek side by side. They just got single file out of Andretti. Hagner keeps the lead. Ove Traingrade behind him in third. A little bit of checkup behind them from fourth on back, but everyone slowly and finally getting into single file here, clean in the GTOs as well.
Nice start from both classes. Now things get a little bit dangerous up into the upper part of the circuit. On these cold tires, anybody going to have problems? Looks like the Nissans are clean through turn 6, now into the carousel, plunging down the hill. And it looks like everybody taking it nice and easy on this opening lap. Already our GTP class coming to complete lap 1. I can report that the GTOs also made it through very well. We did have a few did not start, sadly. Javier Romero and Michael Haynes didn't make it to the grid today. So we watch the battle up at the front for those GTOs. Hagner starting to stretch away before they even complete that first lap. He's got nearly a second over Rob Olenek, our winner last week at COTA, trying to give chase. He's got Ove Traingrade close behind.
Yeah, Joni Hagner, your winner in the season opener. Olenek, like you said, won the last 2 races, but Hagner was not competing in those last 2 races to give Olenek that competition. So definitely expecting Hagner to be able to pull away, at least here at the start. Not sure if he'll be able to keep that lead, though, later on in the race.
At least it's a better start for the Norwegian Ove Traingrade. Last race earlier this morning in the Lotus 49, he dropped back multiple positions in the first lap. This time he stays in third, already starting to hound Rob Olenek slightly. Gets a good run up the hill, but passes into the corkscrew can be marginal, especially this early in a 60-minute race, so he's just going to hold back.
Circuit of the Americas did not treat Ove very well last week either.
Oh, and we had a problem in turn 6. Who was this?
Looks like Kevin Binkley. Oh, ahead of him, it looks like Neidhart might have been involved in this as well.
It was indeed. He tried to catch the car and it spun back on track. He got hit by Binkley and Buscemi as well. We're going to watch it one more time here from above.
A little bit of contact with Tanner McCullough as well. He almost got through there. Very scary ride for Tanner through that, Mick.
Multiple cars having close calls. Let's watch from Tanner's view. Looked like that last little clip we saw of it, that he clipped that inside curb too much. The Canadian manages to keep himself in P9.
Well, we were discussing turn number 6 right on the pace lap here, just how dangerous that is. And we've got our first casualty from that turn today.
Unfortunately. Oh, and I think Reed Miller about to be overtaken. We're watching the GTPs, but down in P6, side-by-side action. Miller was slow through turn 6, been Laughter trying to take it side by side through the carousel, but unfortunately, Miller is just a tough nut to crack.
Laughter gonna fight back on the outside here. If he can hold that line, it'll switch back to the preferred line. I think he's gonna have it here, down into turn 11.
Got to gun it off the corner. He finds the traction. Nicely done. Laughter never giving up. That's going to give him P6 over Miller. One thing that's surprising me so far is Artu Iamaki, who didn't qualify as well as we're used to seeing, is still stuck down in 4th, is not able to do anything with Phil Lake. For being the winner last round and for being last season's champion, the number 3 car looks like he struggled a little bit today.
Yeah, and he's not applying a great deal of pressure either to a Phil Lake in front of him. He's just kind of riding around there in 4th. Hard to tell if he's pushing as hard as he can right now, or if this is the pace he's got. He is closing in a bit on Lake there through the Andretti hairpin.
Driver who certainly has pace is Gerber. You saw at the top of your screen, set the fastest lap of the race so far in that number 2 machine. Back from Lake at Iamaki. Both of them just kicking up a little bit of dirt on the exit of 4. Let's jump back down to the GTOs because Olenek, who continues to fall back from Hagner, also is falling into the clutches of Trangarade. They've got Milan Arnozzi behind them and Nick Mukanos waiting for any sort of battle to erupt for P2. They break for the Andretti hairpin. The Norwegian not quite close enough to overtake the American here.
Well, this is very similar to what we saw last week at Circuit of the Americas in the GTOs. The leader stretching away, but in the battle for second was 3 or 4 cars train for the whole race. The difference is that Olenek was the one stretching away in the lead last week. Now he's part of the battle this week.
And looking back from Olenek, there's a little bit of damage on the front of Trangarade. I'm not sure where he got that. Maybe just clipped a curb too hard, because I don't recall seeing him hit anyone. Oh, speaking of clipping the curbs, there goes Olenek, a little bit off track through turn 6. Ove Trangarade pounces on that. He's got the inside into the corkscrew. Not good enough on the brakes. Here comes Olenek back at him. He's going to take the place back.
This is really allowing Arnozzi and Mukanos to reel these guys in too. Arnozzi going to look for a way around Trangarade on down on the inside here. Can't quite make it work. Down into turn 11. Trangarade looked to the outside for a moment. Now he's going to try to get around Olenek.
Ooh, hot on the brakes, but the Norwegian manages to keep from running into Olenek. Olenek gets the shot off the corner. Ove does not. Here comes Milan a second time. This time around the outside of the first corner, but they've got a break for Andretti. And once again, Ove Trangarade. Oh, a big slide, way too hot out of the hairpin. An over-under move from Milan Arnozzi. Battle not quite over yet. Ove tries to come back to the inside of turn 3. Swapping spots multiple times. Milan still wheel to wheel as they come to turn 4. And he gets a shot from the back from Nick Mukanos.
It was a beautiful move down into turn 1 for Arnozzi. He timed that perfectly and he read it like a book. He's finally going to find a way around Trangarade. He clears him. He gets that third place position. And now the battle is Trangarade and Mukanos, it looks like.
So like Ove missed a gear on their way towards turn 5. Just seemed like he suddenly slowed. Whatever the case, that certainly helped Rob Olenek, who's pulled the gap a little over a second over this train of 3 and can now finally set his sights to Hagner ahead. Not missing much up in the GTP class. They've all kind of spread themselves out with their own piece of track. This is really where the action is, right at the top. Oh, and unfortunately, just as I say that, looks like Phil Lake overtakes Albrecht for second. Was this traffic, maybe? It was indeed.
Didn't take the Nissans long to catch the tail end of the Audis, did it?
Oh, he just picked the wrong side. That was Gregorio Buscemi, and you can't really fault Gregorio, I don't think. It seemed like he was just running his racing line, and unfortunately that took him to the outside of the corner where Albrecht decided he wanted to go.
Yeah, this track provides so few options in ways of getting out of the way of the oncoming Nissans from behind you. But that being said, Albrecht not losing a whole lot of ground to Lake. It looks like he's even starting to reel him back in a little bit.
He's got it down under a second. These teammates all the way off the track from Phil Lake, really stretching the limits as we ride on board with Fabian Gerber. He's dealing with a lot of traffic right now. That's Mukanos, Trangrade, and Arnozzi, who we were watching earlier, battling for P3. He is going to go around the outside of Mukanos. This time it works for him, slicing through the GTOs. Fabian Gerber making good on the pace of this Nissan to the inside of Arnozzi, and now he's past the thick of it.
Everyone else going to try to go by here on the front stretch. It looks like at least the top 3 Nissans make it through there cleanly. Ardo Iamaki making his way through now down into turn 1. Might get a little hairier for him.
And unfortunately, that's Rob Olenek, who is another dirty torque driver. He's not going to play any nasty team tactics, though. He lets the rival team through. Phil Lake and Justin Albrecht now sneaking by. Unfortunately, and ironically, it cost his own teammates more. You can see the gap that also opened up to Iamaki. Sorry, go ahead.
Looks like we had a problem involving John Keefe around the last lap. I think this was in turn number 6 he had an issue.
Let's take a look at the replay. Looks like he did find the wall. Climbing up the hill towards turn 6. Well, the apex is certainly not there, but there's the wall. Got it going once again, but this slots him down to 9th. Now, did we have an issue with Hideki Koivisto? Because I see he's come into the pits, or is he just running an alternate strategy? See, about 11 seconds he was stationary.
This might be an alternate strategy. I don't see too many issues with him. He was running in a little bit of traffic, but I don't think he picked up any damage from that.
So we jump back to second place. Albrecht continuing to try to apply pressure to Phil Lake. See if he can get this one away from him. They climb up through 6. They are within sight of Fabian Gerber, so they might not want to battle each other too much, lest they lose the former champions up in their windshield.
Yeah, and they don't want to battle each other too much because, you know, especially seeing that this 2.25 mile track brought them up to the rear end of the Audis only within about 11 minutes. So they're definitely going to get that opportunity once again to close in on Gerber. The problem is that Fabian is just so good getting through traffic.
And speaking of traffic, we've jumped back to the mid-pack here in the GTPs. That's Vance Bow having to go around the outside of Arnozzi while dealing with Fabian Jungblut climbing all over the rear wing. Doesn't see a chance to pass down into the final hairpin. They've got Olenek ahead of them, but I think they should be able to overtake that Audi on the front stretch.
Yeah, this is a battle for 5th between Bow and Jungblut here. Jungblut working his way through. He's not going to get by Olenek there. Maybe here. Not quite. Gets up alongside of him.
This is certainly helping Vance Bow, as that gap, which was about 0.3 of a second, gone up to nearly 2 seconds between these two cars. We're only a quarter of the way into the race. We've seen some good action, but also a fair bit of patience. Maybe knowing the extra 20 minutes could offer more opportunities. Drivers thinking long term. Arnozzi, who we watch once again, still trying to chase down Olenek. He has left Trangrade a little bit behind him. The number 12 car, who had probably the best season we've ever seen out of the number 12 last season, looking to garner another podium.
Yeah, Arnozzi picked up multiple wins last season. I think it was 3 or 4. Might be wrong on that, but he hasn't picked up any wins yet this year. In fact, he's only had one podium. That came at Phillip Island when he finished second. So not the start to the season I'm sure he'd like, but looking good so far here in the early stages of this one.
Certainly still has chances to make good on how he's looking today. We ride on board the tail of this train. This is Nick Mukanos in the Dirty Torque car. Excuse me, no, that's not Dirty Torque car. That is, I need to check my notes on what team he's racing for. Oh, it is Dirty Torque. Okay, his paint looked different from the other guy, so second guessing myself. Well, so far, it's been only the likes of Hideki Koivisto to try an alternate strategy. Everyone else seems to be either splitting it in half or taking a late stop. And the Finn certainly running some decent lap times. So while he is a ways back from most of the fields, he's actually only 12 seconds behind the next car up, which is Ryan Lang. You see Lang currently P10, who himself has a big gap up to John Keefe. Lang himself must have had some big problems because we know Keefe has had a run-in with the wall at one point earlier. If I could have a little bit of nepotism here, how about a little credit for Don Peak, sitting 8th place, which is not bad for him. That'll be a nice little haul of points if he could stay there.
And he's catching Johnny Bell.
Yeah, I was just about to say, he could be looking at 7th, depending on what he could do with this traffic. They're going by Mukanos and Trangarade, but Pete going to get stuck between them momentarily. Now he's able to sneak through. That unfortunately cost him about a second and a half up to Bell, the number 23 car, managing to give himself some breathing space.
Taking a look at this battle now with the Audis, Milan Arnozzi and Ove Trangarade, but a few spots behind him. Trangarade holding off Mukanos right now. This is all happening behind a Joni Hagner, who is over 8 seconds ahead now from second place Rob Olenek.
Something about those fins, especially when you put them in a four-wheel drive Audi. It's almost unfair as the number 1 car continues to extend himself over every single other driver, if I could speak today, in this GTO field.
And a side-by-side battle happening now between Trangarade and Mukanos behind them as well for 4th in the Audis. Looks like Trangarade going to hold on for the time being. A little damage on the front of that 9 car.
We spotted that a little bit earlier. Still not sure what caused it. We're right on board with Mukanos, who continues to try and find himself a way by. He's gaining now with a good run up the hill, but he runs out of racetrack by the time they hit turn 6. So that won't leave him a chance to pass quite yet. And again, this is all for P4 that we're watching.
You can see how harsh the drift for these Audis is into that corkscrew. It's so scary going through there with all that weight.
We know Ove likes to drift the car as well. Not afraid to get that thing sideways. Now, as we've been watching this, I can report that Phil Lake has not only closed in on Fabian Gerber, he's got it down to within half a second. And he's pulling away from Albrecht. Now, this might be traffic, actually, which they're coming up to right now. Reed Miller just not in a good spot for our leader. Gerber loses out a few more tenths to Phil Lake. Talk about a repeat of last week. It's starting to look the same here in the Nissans. Phil Lake was trying to get the lead away from Gerber and did for briefly at Coda. Just unfortunately couldn't keep it together.
Phil Lake being very aggressive here. Saw him get into the gravel just a little bit ago. They're being split right now by Ben Lafter, the number 14 Audi. That's going to slow Phil Lake down a little bit here.
All that progress lost. Whew. Things get a little sketchy through turn 6, but everyone makes it through clean.
And Justin Albrecht, his teammate, not super far behind him either in third.
Now, to tell you of the incredible pace of all these drivers in the top 4, that includes Iamaki behind these 3 we've been reporting on, they have 19 seconds back to Vance Bow, who's in P5. They are demolishing the rest of the field. "20 minutes in now, 1/3 of the way through this race. Your leader in the GTPs is still Fabian Gerber, who started it from pole. Same situation down in the GTOs. Joni Hagner up at the front. It is now up to 10 seconds there for the Finn. He's going to let Don Peak lap him. Who's, oh, excuse me, no, Peak was ahead of Keefe earlier. Thought he had recently made that pass. Got myself confused.
Yeah, John Keefe fighting back from that incident he had earlier when he got in the tire barrier. He is definitely got the pace back. He's moving up, and Don Peak not too far ahead of him for that 8th place position.
Right on board with the Hoosier. Even though I know he races from Club Ohio, I can accurately say that Peak also racing as a Hoosier. Oh, and we have more pit stops. Phil Lake coming in. He was getting chased down by Justin Albrecht. It was under a second between them. Maybe he decided this was a good time to get out of the traffic that he was in, take a scheduled stop.
Yeah, about 21 minutes in. The length they have left is about the length of a normal race here in Kamel GT, a normal sprint race, 40 minutes. So let's see if Phil Lake can stretch it this far.
Which makes me wonder, because Koivisto, let's see, 9 laps ago. That was quite a bit ago.
That was really early, it seems.
I don't know if he'll be able to make it. Phil Lake is already done and back out. He's actually side by side with McCullough right now, and he's going to want to try and get ahead of him. He does, so that'll keep him clear of a little bit of traffic, allow him some time to put some hot laps in.
It's going to move Justin Albrecht, his teammate, up to second, and he, let's see if he comes into the pits this time. No, he's going to stay out, so it looks like a pretty early strategy for Phil Lake coming into the pits.
Well, if you can't beat him on track, beat him in the pits. We'll see if that works out for the Dirty Torque driver. And Mukano's finally got by Ove. Let me see if this was recent.
This was right down
very
to turn
recent.
10.
We're going to pull up the replay, and Ove just was... Oh, did he miss a shift?
He might have. He was on the outside there, it looked like. I thought it almost looked like he was slow enough to be headed towards the pits, really. Oh, slow down penalty.
Yep, we just saw it right there. He's trying to hand it back as safely as he could. That was easy pickings for the Californian.
Well, he's fighting back right now, though, on track.
Come back live. Oh, he's got a good run, but maybe too good of one.
Oh.
Hold on to it. Car nearly going away from him out of turn 6. Maybe pushing a little too hard.
A little more conservative down through the corkscrew. Let's see if he can get it gathered up in the carousel.
Close enough to attack here in 10. Maybe give himself a good shot in the arm. Coming down to the final hairpin. No, he's going to stay on the racing line and work for it elsewhere. Up and over turn 1. Down into the Andretti hairpin, still having to wait patiently. We are seeing that difficulty in passing bear out here at Laguna Seca. Most of these passes we've watched have been down to driver error.
Yeah, we kind of had the feeling that this would be the case here at Laguna Seca. Such a tough track to pass at, such a tough track to defend your position from as well.
Stays with him. Up through turn 5, climbing the hill once more. This is where we saw a scary moment just a lap ago for Trangarade. He's a lot smoother this time, but also doesn't really give himself an opportunity. They've got lap traffic in the form of Vance Bow, 4th place in the GTPs, getting ready to overtake them. He's going to sit behind and wait patiently. Gets one of them. Trangarade put a lap down. And what about Mukanos down to the inside? This is actually going to slow Mukanos up. And Vance Bow can't get the power down off the corner. He's a little bit slow as well. Unfortunately for Ove Trangarade, just cannot find an opportunity.
Fabian Jungbluth, that next car coming through. Oh, it's getting tight through there. Trangarade going to be stuck on the outside. That did not go over well for him in terms of catching Mukanos.
And that is Phil Lake, remember, one of our early stoppers, who's now stuck behind his teammate at Dirty Torque. He gets by. He was right underneath Fabian Jungbluth before that traffic. Now he's got to fight his way forward once more. Come upon more of them. Milan Arnozzi up ahead. Oh, and that is Vance Bow, actually. Jungbluth has run down the 4th place driver. So this might be a 3-way fight for P4.
As indeed, Bow's got to defend here. It'll be interesting to see if either Bow or Jungbluth choose to pit here. Jungbluth's got a lot of speed, though. I'm sure he doesn't want to come into the pits right now. Bow might bow out of the competition here, though.
And I almost think now would be a good time for Jungbluth to come into the pits, see if he could jump him. In the meantime, Phil Lake does not have that option. He's got to do this on track. They sneak by Rob Olenek. He's now on top of Jungbluth. Once again, both of them completely off course. They get back on without any dramas. Phil Lake dive into the inside, down into turn 5. Finally gets that pass done with a little wobble from Jungbluth, just for good measure. Lake now back into the top 5.
Yeah, and we saw Lake pit earlier in this race. I wouldn't be surprised if him getting stuck up in all this traffic allows Albrecht to jump him once he makes his pit stop for 2nd.
And I'm not sure if we had a scheduled stop for Don Peak. He had a long stop, 34 seconds compared to 16 for Phil Lake. That's put him back to the back of the pack of the GTP cars still running. I don't see any damage on the car, so I'm going to assume that was a scheduled stop. As the sun goes behind a cloud, cooling things down slightly. It has thankfully gone down to 90 degrees Fahrenheit out here. Conditions getting grippier. Switched back to the battle for P4. Mukanos still leading Trangarade ever since Ove's mistake in the corkscrew. He's been banging at the door, trying to see if he can get that position right back from Nick. No such luck thus far.
Yeah, this seems to be the closest battle on track right now, especially in the Audis. Everyone ahead of them has really spread out. Huge gap in between Hagner and Olenek for the lead, and Arnozzi all by himself as well for 3rd.
As we go to the prototypes, Phil Lake has now caught Vance Bow. He's to the inside, down into the final hairpin, and makes easy work of him. Using a little bit of traffic on top of it. Let's watch from on board Lake's view.
This was Kevin Binkley, the Audi they were trying to get around, the number 8, who's 3 laps down from a very early incident he had. And this got tight.
Yeah, brave stuff. Not often you see 3 wide in that hairpin, but that moves Phil Lake back up to 4th. How much of this battling has cost him, though? Remember, he was fighting with Justin Albrecht, his teammate, and also trying to chase down Fabian Gerber. And that alternate strategy, in the end, is meant to try and give himself a little bit of an edge over those two. There you see Iamaki. Meanwhile, Laughter has pitted from the GTOs. Taking his tires as some more of the cars get by. McCullough's going to overtake him as he exits his pit stall. This is our overall leader that we're looking at, the number 2 of Fabian Gerber. We're now past halfway in this race as well.
We are indeed. Pit stops, I think, are going to become more and more prevalent now. If they know they can make it this far, they'll be able to make it to the end with 1 stop easily. So it'll all depend on when you want to come in and who you come in with, or if you're jumping anyone on track.
Yeah, I suspect traffic will play a part in those decisions. We look at Justin Albrecht. He's heading towards the pit entry, but will he come in?
Yes.
Yes, he does.
So he comes in before Gerber does. He stays out on track. Iamaki also stays out on track, and the next car back is Phil Lake, who made his pit stop much earlier.
Yeah, Lake all the way on the other side of the circuit. He's hitting the corkscrew. He also has lap traffic in front of him. That's Hideki Koivisto that he's quickly approaching. Albrecht in his stall, taking his service. Lake just coming around to finish the lap as we ride on board with the UK&I driver. More traffic. Tanner McCullough. Koivisto in a horrible spot for him. And Albrecht is just getting out of his stall now. This actually worked out fantastic for Phil Lake.
And that's really surprising to me because Phil Lake, I mean, he's had so much traffic to deal with too.
Absolutely. Justin Albrecht, who was within a few tenths of Lake before the stops, is now a whole 4 seconds behind.
Albrecht comes out a little bit in front of where Vance Bow and Fabian Jungbluth are continuing a bit of a battle. They are separated by a few car lengths right now, but Bow has taken that spot back.
And those two have not pitted yet, so they will relinquish some of that small gap. Ooh, good run up the hill for Jungbluth, but he can't do anything with it. Fortunately, the traffic causing him to have second thoughts about trying to go on the attack on Bow. Still waiting on plenty of our GTOs to pit as well. I think Kevin Binkley is taking his scheduled stop. Actually, he's been in there a while. So not sure what happened in the number 8. Pretty sure the only one to take a scheduled stop so far down there is Ben Laughter. He's currently running 10th. See Joni Hagner electing not to take his stop this lap. Rob Olenek continuing to run second place, but a big gap of 12 seconds behind Joni Hagner.
Both of the top GTP drivers also staying out, Gerber and Iamaki. Iamaki wasn't able to come into the pits anyway. Rob Olenek was kind of blocking the entry for him when he went by him.
Well, the eternal fight continues on screen. This is for P4. That's Mukanos you see in the car ahead. The white and red car behind is Ove Trangerade. haven't seemed to be able to get away from one another since the green flag dropped, even though they have swapped positions at least once.
Yeah, they've stuck right together throughout this whole race. It'll be interesting to see what their pit strategy is, if anyone can jump them or if they come in together.
If I was Ove, I think I would try to jump him. I would try to come in
absolutely.
now. They're going to get lapped by Johnny Bell.
Johnny Bell being chased by John Keefe right now. He's actually not too far back from making up another spot.
Keefe, who qualified this race in 7th, is actually only down to 8th because of his problems. He's yet to take his pit stop. He's not going to take it this time. They're going by Nick Mukanos. At least Johnny Bell was. Keefe, unfortunately, going to have to try for another corner to do that. Minutes left to go on the clock now.
Oh, Ryan Lang just had a little bit of an issue a few turns ago. He was trying to get around Reed Miller, and this is a very interesting save he had in the gravel.
Here we go. You can see him climbing up towards the corkscrew. Is in Rainy Curve. He's right on board with the Illinois driver.
Yeah, once he got down out of the corkscrew, coming into this turn, I believe.
Whoa. Wow, that car snapped quick, but cat-like reflexes for Ryan Lang.
Yeah.
Keeps him in the race, though positions were lost. Oh boy, Albrecht has caught up to Lake, and very, very quickly it is down to 3/10. I'm not sure if this was traffic or what happened here.
He has indeed. Ahead of them, Ove Trangerade is headed into the pits.
Taking our advice. Number 9 going for a scheduled stop, we believe.
Well, Rob Olenek in as well.
Olenek taking tires. And Vance Bow also taking his stop. That'll actually free up Fabian Jungbluth. Remember, he was pressuring Bow for a number of laps. Ove in for a lightning 11 seconds. Did he take tires? Because we saw other drivers go up on the jacks. 16 seconds for Laughter and Olenek. You know, I'm guessing that's the difference then. Now, I'm not sure if that's going to be a wise decision, though, because it's only 5 seconds shorter, and these tires can go away on the Audis. Can he keep the pace up on old rubber and manage to not lose 5 seconds worth of time?
Well, hopefully he got enough fuel in the car as well. And I mean, if he starts battling with Mukanos once again, by the way, Nick Mukanos also coming into the pits now with Milan Arnozzi. If he gets battling with Mukanos once again, I think Mukanos is definitely going to have that advantage if he takes tires here.
And Jungbluth going to take his stop. As he trundles down the pit lane, he was battling with Vance Bow, who's coming to the corkscrew right now. There we see him on screen, having to put another lap on John White. And interestingly, Don Peak is a lap down, so that's not for position. You see Vance flashing his lights at him.
Looks like Arnozzi elected not to take tires there as well.
And oh my goodness, Jungbluth, half the time that the other cars around him took in the pit stops. Everybody else looking at 16 and 18 seconds. Jungbluth in there for 9. So that is easily going to allow him to jump Vance Bow. Well, fascinating differing strategies that we're getting out here in this series. With 20 minutes left to go, we're going to see the rest of the GTPs come in. What will this tell us about Hideki Koivisto, who pitted nearly at the very beginning of the race, and we worry that he won't be able to make it to the end?
Don't forget, we're still waiting on Joni Hagner as well, the GTO leader, who has a huge gap. So he shouldn't have a problem maintaining that, assuming he has a clean stop.
Yep, he's heading up through turn 6 right now. His gap that you see back to Olenek, that is exaggerated because Rob has taken his scheduled stop. Both the dirty torque cars of Albrecht and Lake slide through before the corkscrew. Right in on board with the Finn. Pit entry coming up. Does he decide to come in this lap? Does he stay out? He's going to stay out. So what does this do for everybody else now? We're waiting on Gerber, Iamaki, Bell, and Lang to take stops in the GTPs. The GTOs were waiting on Hagner, Buscemi, McCullough, and White. Everybody else has taken at least one stop. Gerber's certainly not going to take it this time around. Getting ready to start lap 34.
Iamaki staying out as well in second.
And Gerber certainly seems to have the legs on Iamaki today. Look at that 11-second gap between them. This is Phil Lake sitting down in third, our highest pitter right now. But certainly not alone. His teammate Justin Albrecht keeping tabs on him from behind.
And we were wondering if Albrecht would be able to jump Lake in the pits. He was not able to. He came out far behind him, so this has been a mighty fine charge for Albrecht to get up here to the back of Lake.
Speaking of cars getting to the back of each other, Mukanos, remember, oh, and Ovi Trangorade's in the wall. Trangorade's tires have given out. This is in turn 3. I was just getting ready to comment that Mukanos had run him down, and we think it's going to be easy for him to overtake Trangorade since he didn't take tires. I didn't think it would be that easy, though, as we watched the replay.
It was a bold strategy. You see the tires just not enough grip. He gets out into the dirt and the dried up grass there on the left of the track and just lost it hard into the wall. And that's not the tire barrier either that he went into. That's the hard concrete barrier. Lots of damage on the front of that 9 Audi.
We saw from the Scandinavian driver's view as returns to the track. That unfortunately puts him down to 6. Gregorio Buscemi manages to scalp a spot due to that. Granted, he's not got a huge gap. And
oh, Tanner just had a bit of an incident.
And there goes another one. Hit twice by Ben Laughter, who's already taken his stop. He's in a hurry to get through. That does cost him another position. Was Tanner trying to pit there, or was he just trying to let him go?
Yeah, I think he was definitely pitting. He was definitely a lot slower and then just got bumped out of the pit road.
I would think he would be able to pull farther off left. No, yeah, you're right. I think you're right. He was just hadn't had the chance to get all the way in there. So one extra lap unintentionally for the number 6 car, as well as a position loss. John White, who also has not pitted with all that melee happening, managed to sneak into P8. 16 minutes left to go now. And let's see, Hideki Koivisto, 26 laps currently on this stint. The leaders on 36 laps. So he might actually be able to do this. Oh, and our leader in GTO is in. Hagner finally taking his stop. We don't expect Olenek to be able to catch him. Same deal for Fabian Gerber. But Yamaki's going to stay out and lead a lap. So at this point, now actually, where is Lake going to come out in regards to Gerber? He wasn't too far behind when Lake pitted.
Coming up to turn 11 now, still battling with Albrecht behind him. Hard on the brakes for both of them. Albrecht really locked it up there.
Oh, and that might be costly because Gerber's just getting out now. You can see them coming over the hill in the background. It is not going to be enough, though. And Gerber manages to come out ahead of Philip Lake.
Indeed he does. And yeah, I was wondering if Lake would have enough momentum even then to catch him. No, looks like Gerber is long gone.
Yeah, that gap between them about 3 seconds. So Lake slightly lost out through the pit cycle, but it gives Fabian Gerber a slight bit of breathing room. We believe he will re-inherit the lead if he doesn't throw, if one of the other cars doesn't throw their race away, kicking up the dust out of turn 6. Having to go by the leader in the GTOs, Joni Hagner. Still, that battle for third between Lake and Albrecht, not able to separate. That might change once Iamaki himself pits, who stays out for another lap. Down to 13 minutes to go. Really getting to the tail end of things. And I'm pretty certain at this point that Koivisto will be able to get to the end, because I see Iamaki on 38 laps. I'm pretty certain they have... Whoa! And Phil Lake out of turn 5 whips it around, handing it over to Justin Albrecht.
Phil Lake's been struggling in that part of the track 5 and 6 for the last couple of laps now. We've seen him get out into the gravel. Even that last lap before this, finally got offline a little too much there and swung it around like you said. Take a look here on board with him. On board with Albrecht.
Yeah. And what this does do is Iamaki just pits right now. And Lake... Not sure, will Lake be able to get out ahead of Iamaki? Think it'll be awful tight. Ardo's going now. Momentum in favor of Lake. He's got the speed, but he's also got lap traffic. That's Don Peak and Joni Hagner just ahead of him. But look at the lap traffic on the pit lane. John White, unfortunately, exactly where Iamaki wants to be, almost 4 wide. As Phil Lake manages to get the inside of turn 3. You can't get tighter than that.
We've seen 3 wide a couple times today, and that's been very bold, but 4 wide coming out of the pit lane. That was something else. Iamaki's got a lot of pace, though, here. I definitely think he's going to be able to close in on the back of the Lake. When will he try to dive down and take that position, though, if he can get there?
He fell off just a little bit. Can we get a replay from above of that pit exit? Good job for all drivers involved to avoid calamity in that one. Everybody being really heads up. There you can see them coming around to the hairpin. What horrible, horrible timing for Iamaki for that Audi to be right there. Wow. Hagner probably watching from behind going, "You guys don't wreck, just don't spin in front of me. I got a good lead, I don't need this." So another car coming out of pit lane, that's Gregorio Buscemi that you see finishing his stop. Tanner McCullough, the only one that we're waiting on at this point down in the GTOs. Johnny Bell. And is that? Oh, and Don Peak having problems.
Looks like turn 3 for him.
Now he managed to keep it out of the wall.
Yeah, he had a nice little
way too much
there
curb
to get out of the wall.
That orange curb not playing nice with the bright blue car. He returns in P10, but about 46 seconds behind Ryan Lang, so not really in the hunt for any more positions.
And Joe, you mentioned that we're waiting on Tanner McCullough right now to come into the pits. Hearing some word that he is trying to stretch this as far as he can and maybe trying to avoid a pit stop. It's a bold move, a bold strategy, but we know Tanner likes to pull off a lot of those types of racing strategies as well, so wouldn't be surprised if he's able to get that done. It's going to be difficult, though.
We'll see how it plays out, Cotton. And the number 6, currently sitting P7. He does have Reed Miller right behind him, so Reed has taken his stop. If he's not saving fuel, might be easy pickings for him to get by into 7th place. Nine minutes left on the clock. So can Tanner McCullough stretch this one out? We wondered if it's feasible. I'm actually kind of curious. Did they have engine mapping on these Audis? I'll have to ask after the race to see if that was part of it for Tanner. Already you can see that Miller's closing in. Very strong the latter half of this course. 4/10 between them. Up and over the hill. He's closing in slightly. Oh, that looked like a big lift into the hairpin for Tanner McCullough.
Yeah, he's definitely doing everything possible to stretch this another 8 minutes and 20 seconds, and however extra he needs to complete that last lap as well.
We are getting some information fed. No, they do not have engine mapping on the Audis. So Tanner's going to have to pray to the fuel spirit of Scott Dixon. See if he can stretch this out just that little bit longer. And while these two looking close to swapping, we're keeping half an eye on Arnozzi and Mucanos, who've caught each other. It's been a while since those two have been fighting this race.
Well, I believe Arnozzi was another one, like Ove Trangrade, that did not take tires in the pit stop, so he might be struggling a little bit with the handling of that car late in the run as well.
Yeah, I'm seeing 12 seconds for the number 12 car. And meanwhile, we still on screen are seeing McCullough dealing with intense pressure. If he makes it to the end without a stop, credit to him for holding back Reed this long. Working their way now through turn 3 up to 4. I'm also watching to see if anything happens between Mucanos and Arnozzi. They're actually splitting apart, so don't need to go there. Lap traffic getting in their way. Ever closer behind the rear spoiler of Tanner McCullough. Reed Miller through turn 6, maybe looking to get himself a run. That was very smooth up the hill. Is he brave enough to try a pass into the corkscrew? He's going to try and make it side by side. And it doesn't pan out.
Oh, Tanner McCullough still slow.
Off the corner. Was that a missed shift from from McCullough?
I think it may have been.
Oh, and prototype side by side, Phil Lake, Ardo Iamaki. This is where they were side by side before, out of the pit lane. Not willing to give it up. Phil Lake moving himself back ahead, but only momentarily. Oh, they come together. Iamaki tips Lake around.
Just side by side, right in the middle of his car. Phil Lake gets a little bit of a tap and goes off into the gravel. Iamaki keeps going, though.
And that, unfortunately, means that Phil Lake finds himself in the dirt and dust of the dry lake bed. Let's watch him on board. I wondered if they could make it through here too wide, and might have been a little bit of net code involved. That's the risk you take when you run that close to each other. As that was happening, Gerber's not having it all his own way this race. Justin Albrecht down to within a second of our multiple-time champion.
Yeah, Phil Lake's Dirty Torque teammate, Justin Albrecht, has really made great ground on this second stint here and really closed this gap for the lead.
This traffic certainly not doing any favors for the leader. Whoa! And that traffic, of course, even going off completely with Albrecht coming through. That was John White trying to keep from getting involved in an incident. We ride on board now with second place Justin Albrecht. That, unfortunately for Justin, gapped him to about a second and a half, losing a little bit of time. What, ever since Miller got past McCullough, Tanner is certainly managing to keep hold of the back of Reed. And in fact, he might have a pass opportunity here up to turn 6. Depends on how brave he is. He's got a nose in. But a little bit wide at the apex, given space. Reed Miller maybe a little bit too polite, and that loses the spot back. Tanner better hope that all this fighting is not sucking up more fuel in the car. He's got to make 3 more minutes. This is our closest fight in the race. The battle for first is separated. And, Arnozzi and Mukanos still close together. This is for a podium position up the hill. Remember, Mukanos on fresher tires. Arnozzi, they pitted on the same lap, but Milan trying to stretch this single set all the way to the checkered flag.
And we saw how much of a struggle it was for Ove train grade on older tires, so this is a heck of a drive for Milan Arnozzi on these tires as well here to be able to hold off Nick Mukanos, who was pretty far behind him.
And the number 12, who might not get a win today, is desperately clinging to a podium finish to make it his second of the season. 2 minutes left to go. Mukanos just stalking him for the moment, making sure that he keeps Milan Arnozzi honest. GTP drivers have all pretty much split apart from each other. It's going to take some traffic or a mistake for us to see a battle towards the end. In fact, we got 2 laps to go in this race because Gerber just crossed the line. Let's stick with this battle. This is again for P3 and the GTO class.
Arnozzi defensive there through the corkscrew. Obviously
feeling a little bit of pressure. Mucanos coming around turn 10, looking a little strong. I don't know if he's strong enough for an attempt into 11. He stays on the racing line, tries to cut it a little wide on entry to get himself the shot off the corner, but it doesn't pay off. Arnotzi keeps the gap.
Takes a wider apex into turn 2 as well, but look at the run that Mucanos can get on him. Arnotzi able to accelerate a little bit better off the turn.
Oh, McCullough.
Oh, boy.
What happened here? Oh, no. All that fuel saving comes to naught. Did he actually run out of fuel? He goes a little wide here, and then he suddenly slows up the hill.
I think he also had a... Looks like
yeah, just he caught the gravel on the outside. Well, all that's happened as Gerber gets ready to come to the checkered flag. The white flag is out. Oh, and we've got enough time. There was some side-by-side action with Mucanos and Arnotzi. He took a go at him through Rainy Curve. Now he's going to try to go around the outside. Maybe switch back.
Oh!
Get the run. Oh, wheel spin.
Oh,
big wheel spin for Mucanos.
Mucanos putting everything on the line, getting as heavy on the right pedal as he can. And he's going to take a late apex into turn number 2 once again.
Yeah, Arnotzi a little bit late into the corner, but let's go to Fabian Gerber to the checkered flag. A win for Fabian here at Laguna Seca, leading Justin Albrecht home. Got a little time before we need to get to Hagner. I'm watching him as we keep the cameras on this battle. Arnotzi with an incredible defense. Can he withstand the pressure for a half a lap more? Joni Hagner's coming up to the final corner. A dominant performance from the number 1 car. With a little bit of showmanship off the final corner, Hagner takes the win in California.
Rob Olenek should be able to hang on for a second place, but for third, Arnotzi was able to stretch away through the corkscrew a little bit. It looks like that number 12 car on old tires throughout this whole race is going to be able to hold on. He's just got turn 11 to go to hold off Mucanos. And he doesn't get through there amazingly, but he's going to make it work, it looks like. As Mucanos goes wide, he will take P3.
And a slow car, that was Ryan Lang. He must have run out of fuel on the final lap. That's going to close things out here on the Global Sim Racing channel for Kamel GT, but the broadcast is not over. We'll have the unofficial results as well as driver interviews. And then don't forget, we've got all the upcoming races on your screen during the break here on GSRC. Welcome back to Laguna Seca here in California. We just watched round 4 of the Kamel GT series. In the end, Fabian Gerber continues the dominant run he's had this season. He's only lost one race on the broadcast. Justin Albrecht tried to chase him home, and it was Ardo Iamaki with another podium, but just did not seem to have speed today. Phil Lake, who was fighting with Ardo at the end of the race, unfortunately wound up having to settle for P4. And then Fabian Jungbluth, the first car lap down, gets 5th place. Vance Bow, credit to him, coming home P6 with Hideki Koivisto. Alternate strategy to go from 10th to 7th out on track. Then you've got Johnny Bell coming home P8th, Ryan Lang in 9th, and Don Peak finishing 10th. John Keefe rounds out our finishing GTP cars, taking 11th.
Joni Hagner is going to pick up his 2nd win of the season in the GTO class, followed by another driver with 2 wins, Rob Olenek, who's going to finish 2nd. Milan Arnauts, he saw that fantastic battle at the end of the race. He will get 3rd place, the final podium step, over Nick Mukanos, who really gave it his all at the end. He will still finish in front of Ben Lafter, who's going to come home in 5th today, gaining 2 spots from the beginning. He swapped that with Ove Trangarade, who had some later race problems on old tires. He finishes behind him, followed by Reed Miller, Gregorio Buscemi. John White had problems of his own. Tanner McCullough also involved in an incident. Kevin Binkley, Dennis Neidhart, Dave Peterson, and Michael Haynes. Haynes actually with a did not start here towards the end of the field.
We've got our winners ready to talk to us. The first one up, Fabian Gerber in the GTP class.
Hello.
Fabian, it looked, hello. It looked like Justin and Phil were kind of keeping you honest for most of the race, especially Justin at the end.
Yes, he was. He got closer and closer because I had some trouble in traffic again, but I didn't feel like he was really fast, just as fast. So it's difficult on this track to overtake. So I felt quite safe if nothing would happen.
What was the traffic like out there today? This known for being a little bit of a tricky circuit for multi-class racing.
It actually went okay. I just had one situation near the end, which was very hairy, but I didn't know if it was my mistake or his. Maybe he just didn't realize I was coming through, or but that's all. Everything else went really well. I just could dive inside, or you can't drive around the outside in most corners. That makes it a bit more difficult, but when you're in the braking zone, it's no problem. And the screwdriver is very, the corkscrew, sorry, is very difficult if you get someone there.
I kind of like calling it the screwdriver. I might have to start referring to it as that. What this circuit, known in real life for being very dusty and slippery because of the wind kicking up all the dirt onto the track. Did you experience that a lot out here in iRacing, or did it stay pretty grippy?
No, I had the same actually. Maybe it's very well simulated because especially the fronts, if you overheat them, it gets very slippery, and some corners are more understeering than others. So maybe because of the dirt, I don't know, but it felt very slippery.
Well, congratulations on withstanding the pressure and taking your 3rd victory of the season, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you. See you next week.
Fabian Gerber, our winner here today. Winner in the GTO class, Joni Hagner, ready to talk to Nick Schmeg.
Absolutely. Joni, it was a dominant performance like we're oftentimes used to seeing from you. Saw you get the win a couple weeks ago in the season opener at Road America, and you come back today for your 2nd race of the season and your 2nd win.
Yeah, thank you. It was a really nice race, and look at real clean from my perspective.
Yeah, it looked like a very clean race. You know, you didn't. It's always good when you have a win that doesn't get you a lot of screen time, because that usually means you're pulling away from the rest of the battles. Did you have any issues? We saw you stay out pretty late in pit strategy. When you have that big of a lead, do you even focus on pit strategy, or do you just come in when it's comfortable?
I came a bit earlier than I wanted because there was a 3-car Audi battle in the front, and I don't want to cause any troubles there. And yeah.
Your last race we saw you was at Road America, a track that, of course, deals with traffic a bit more, but a 40 race at Road America compared to a 60-minute race at Laguna Seca. You dealt with traffic a lot more today, and did you push the issue a lot with traffic, or did you have just a lot of patience knowing you had a lot of time to kill way back to second place?
I take it really easy in the after the first lapping, so I lifted a lot and take it really easy and lost a lot of time. But I wanted to make safe finish because I got margin for that.
Yeah, had an 18 second over an 18-second lead over Rob Olenek on the last lap. Heck of a race, and we love seeing you out on the track. Anytime, any indication of when you'll be back for the next race this season?
Soon. Maybe next week.
All right, we've got Sebring next week, and I believe that's in the sunset. So hopefully we see you there. But Yoni, congratulations today. Another fantastic race by you.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, Mom.
I think that's the first time we've had anybody say that on air. Surprised after 6 years. We've got Phil Lake with us, though. He finished just off the podium in the GTP class. Phil, this seemed like you had a lot of excitement. You raced your teammate some, but then at the end of the race with Ardo Iamaki, talk to us a little bit about the pit cycle, because the pit exit, it looked like it was nearly 4 wide for a second.
Yeah, that ended up being a lot closer. After I had the spin when I was battling with Justin, I didn't expect to be anywhere close to Arto when he came out of the pits. But yeah, that got exciting there for a few seconds.
This circuit certainly seems to give a fair bit of excitement, and I was a little worried coming in that the already chaotic Kamel series might give us a little bit too much chaos around here, but I was impressed with how traffic was dealing with one another out there.
Yeah, no issues with the traffic. I had a frustrating race for a lot of other reasons, but the traffic was pretty good. It's a tough track to pass because there's not really any slow corners, so we catch extremely quickly.
So looks like Gerber's going to be the one to beat this season with 3 out of 4 wins. Sebring coming up, the bumps kind of throw a little bit of, I'd say, a joker into the deck. Do you think you can use the chaos of the bumps over there to maybe try and steal a win?
I'm not sure, hopefully. I've always gone quite well in the Audi at Sebring, so hopefully it translates across, and we'll see. I'm still looking for that first win.
Well, you certainly seem to have the pace, just need luck to go a little bit more your way. Congratulations, at least on a 4th place today.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
It's Phil Lake in the GTP class. One more to go. We've got Ben Laughter talking to Nick Schmeg.
Yeah, Ben, another solid performance for you today. It's your second top 5 of the season, and your 2 races that weren't top 5s were a 6th and 7th. So I'd say we haven't seen you much in this series before, but a pretty good day for you today.
Yeah, among this crowd, a top 5 is pretty solid. You know, I'm a 2nd-tier driver, so that's solidly where I belong. And fun race today, really clean, really respectful. I only had one incident where I didn't understand that Tanner was saving fuel, and I got up in his rear end. But other than that, really clean, really good race.
Yeah, besides that little bobble there with Tanner, with him coming towards the pits, didn't see you too much today. You were by yourself, weren't involved in too many battles. Was traffic a big factor for you today, or were you all pretty much alone for the race today?
Well, after, Reed and I were really close in the early going, and I thought we were going to get stuck together, but we got split up by traffic and just never got back together. So yeah, it was mostly quiet for me. It was just trying to me against the track and making sure my fuel strategy was going to work out okay, which it did.
Yeah, and another thing I'm curious to ask an Audi driver is we saw a couple varying strategies in the GTOs today regarding tire strategy. Did you take tires there on the pit stop? And if so, did that really help? Because we saw a couple of guys be able to stretch it without tires.
So I don't know how much it helped. I passed Ove at the end, and I don't know if he was struggling on tires or had damage or what, but I pitted right at the midway point. If I were to pit anything after that, I would not have taken tires. But pitting right at the midway points when you're taking the most fuel, and so you spend the least amount of time taking tires without fuel. So strategically, the earlier you do it, the more it makes sense. But I mean, if I were pitting at the 45 or 50-minute mark, I certainly wouldn't have.
Yeah, Ove was one of those that did not take tires and actually found himself turned the wrong way around at one point because of that. But a couple of drivers ahead of him, like Milan Arnozzi, did not take tires either and made it work. So before we let you go for today, anyone you want to say thank you or a shout out to before Sebring next week?
Yeah, just Yoni's mom.
Well, I'm sure she will appreciate it. She's getting a lot of love and attention today. But Ben, another solid top 5 today. We're seeing a lot of progress out of you this year, and we're looking forward to what the rest of the season has in store.
Thank you, guys. Good show as always.
I love the sense of humor of the drivers in this series, but we're going to close up today. And before we do, a big thank you to the Kamel community for bringing us back for another season of coverage as well. Thank you to iRacing for putting us on the iRacing Esports Network. Again, if you enjoyed this, make sure and subscribe to them by going to their YouTube page and clicking the subscribe button. Thanks to the companies that provide the software and hardware for our broadcast listed here on your screen. And additional thanks go out to June Lalonde, who provides our wonderful music. See the screen for how to get a hold of more of her great work. Thanks to the team today, Nick, Amjad, and Dougie. If you'd like to find out more about GSRC, including upcoming races, you can find it at globalsimracingchannel.com. We're also on social media. You can find us on Twitter at GSR Channel, Facebook at Global Sim Racing Channel, and Instagram at GSRC_Graham. The next race, as we mentioned, we're heading across the country over to Florida, Sebring, Saturday, April 13th at 1 p.m. Eastern. We also have upcoming races for other series listed on the screen, so check those out and mark them down on your calendar. But until next time, race clean, race hard. We'll see you on the track.